Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and welcome. We're so thrilled to be participating in Overdrive's In the Know series. I'm Kate Henning. I'm the sales manager for Book and Mass Market here at DC. Also joining us from the DC team today, in the chat and possibly on audio at one point, we have Pamela Tingson, who is the sales representative in the Book and Mass team, and T. Leahy, who is a marketing representative on the Book and Mass team. DC Comics and DC Entertainment are known for iconic characters like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, as well as staple literary graphic novels like Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and of course, Sandman. But we are so much more than that. And particularly, we are so thrilled to have two thriving imprints for readers on the younger end of the spectrum. We have DC graphic novels for kids, for readers 8 through 12 years old, and DC graphic novels for young adults, for readers 13 through 17. And today we are going to share some of our recent releases in these lines, as well as a few sneak previews of upcoming entries in a few of our ongoing series in those imprints. We are also so lucky to have 4 talented writers with us today to talk about their books: Sara Farizan, Jadzia Axelrod, Elise Arden, and Cami Garcia. And slide, please. So just to give you a quick little bit of grounding on our resources and outreach, if you were at ALA this year in Washington, D.C., you saw us promoting our young adult graphic novels at the booth layout that you see here, and you probably met some of our talent promoting those graphic novels, as you can see in their signing headshots below. We also, as you can see on the right, have a librarian newsletter managed by T. Leahy. This is the best way to read early PDFs of our upcoming books and stay in the loop on upcoming events like this one. Now let's get started talking about graphic novels for kids. We're going to talk a little bit about Diana, Princess of the Amazons. This is a middle grade graphic novel by Shannon and Dean Hale. Shannon Hale, of course, is the New York Times bestselling author of more than 40 books, including the Friends graphic memoir series. This story features 11-year-old Diana. So this is young Wonder Woman. And in the mythos of Wonder Woman, Diana was created by her mother Hippolyta out of clay, and Hippolyta prayed to the Greek gods to give her a daughter, and so Diana came to life. But what this means is that Diana has always been the only child on the Amazons' home island of Themyscira, and in this story, at the age of 11, she's not really a kid anymore, and she's not really a grown Amazon yet. And that, as you know, as we all know from having been 11, can be a really lonely and frustrating and patience-trying time. So Diana follows her mother's footsteps and makes herself a best friend out of clay and prays for her to come to life. And Mona, her clay best friend, turns out to be a little bit of a bad influence. And what starts as pranks here and there actually turns into much bigger trouble that Diana is going to need the adult help to tackle. So in this story, Diana has a lot to learn about making mistakes and making things right and being in a hurry to grow up. Now, on the right here, we also have a sneak preview of the second book in this series releasing in November. Pam, if you want to show the interiors from the first Diana book. This is Diana and Mona here in the middle after Mona has come to life. It's this great moment of shock and recognition. In the second book, we will actually begin with the young Amazon Nubia. And if you want to go to that slide, who is an only child on her version of Themyscira, also lonely, prays for a sister and wakes up with Diana in her bedroom. And everyone on the island insists it's always been this way and they've always had each other, even though they both know that's not right. but they can only get to the bottom of what's going on if they can turn sibling rivalry into a true cooperative sisterhood. And Nubia is a very important character in our Wonder Woman world right now. She starred in the Nubia Real One YA graphic novel in early 2021 by L. McKinney and Robin Smith, which was the best book at Kirkus and SLJ and had a starred review at PW. She's also starring in a number of titles in the adult line right now. So Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, and Nubia and the Amazons. So this is a big year for Nubia. She's very important in the Wonder Woman world right now, and we're very excited that she's coming into our middle grade line when this book releases in November as well. Slide. Now, another iconic character we talked about at the top of this presentation is Batman. And something that we know about Batman is that he is, of course, the world's greatest detective. So it makes perfect sense that we now have him facing mysteries. This book is Batman meets Encyclopedia Brown. And if we want to go slide, we'll take a look. We have readers sort of helping him find clues. You can see here Batman, for example, comparing fingerprints to some evidence that he and Robin and Batgirl found at a crime scene. And every chapter of this book sort of ends with a stop, don't go any further page. And the reader is engaged to answer the question, solve the mystery of what we've just seen unfold. So Chris Minga is our artist on this. He has this very fresh style. He's actually done a number of different sorts of like collectibles and statues for us. And it translates really well to having a fun energy on the page. And then the author here is Shawley Fish, who has written other projects for us, but as well as a developmental psychologist who's worked on dozens of educational TV series, digital games, magazines like Sesame Street and Cyber Chase. The Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that, and Magic School Bus Rides Again. This was also one of our focus titles this year for Batman Day, which was just a couple weeks ago in mid-September, because we are working on keeping our kids' books and our young readers' books and our middle grade books for Batman front and center in our promotional halo for this character. Now we are going to speak to Sara Farizan. So Sara Farizan is the award-winning and critically acclaimed author of the young adult novels Dead Flip, Here to Stay, Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel, and she's the Lambda Literary Award-winning author of If You Could Be Mine, which was named one of Time Magazine's 100 Best YA Books of All Time. She has short stories in the anthologies Fresh Ink, All Out, The Radical Element, Hungry Hearts, Come On In, and Fools in Love. She also had a dream come true in writing a DC Comics middle grade graphic novel, My Buddy Killer Croc. She has a comic book collection from childhood that continues to grow, and writing this story is a dream come true. To talk about My Buddy Killer Croc, please welcome Sara Farizan.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it, and it is a dream come true. I have been a comics fan since childhood. I really love them so much, and I've been collecting Batman everything for a really long time. To show you I'm not lying, here's my Batman Forever soundtrack, which was my favorite film when I was 10. Still listening to Kiss on a Rose. And here's some Batman Returns McDonald's cups. So Batman's been a part of my life for a long time. Comic books have been a part of my life for a long time, since childhood. They still are. I worked at a comic book store when I was 24. I've worked as an elementary school after school teacher and tutor at 826 Boston before I became a published writer. And what I always noticed is kids always really wanted to read graphic novels, much like I did, even though I was 27, 24 at the time. And the teachers or instructors would say, yes, but you have to read from your real book first, which always made me cringe, because graphic novels are a real book, and they are books that really got me excited about reading. And especially kids who maybe reading isn't something that they found joy in yet. I feel like it's a great way to find the joy in reading when you can feel like, oh, I finished a book and it was engaging, and maybe they learned something without realizing, like, you know, you were able to sneak in the vegetables. So when DC was interested in young adult writers and middle grade writers writing for their titles, I knew I wanted to do something in Gotham City, but I always thought the villains were really interesting. And so I came up with a story. I loved Batman, the animated series, and what they did with the villains in that show, because they were showing a lot of nuance. Like, yes, they were bad characters doing evil things, but usually you saw an origin story of how they got that way, or maybe crime is something that they felt they had to do, which is not always the message we want to give kids. But I just thought it was interesting that it wasn't always so black and white. So I came up with the idea for my buddy Killer Croc, which is illustrated by Nicoletta Baldari, who is really, really brilliant. It's for ages 8 to 12. I feel like if a kid who was younger wanted to read it, maybe an adult should read it with them or first. There is violence, but there's no guns or blood. There's just sort of like kicking and wrestling. And it's about a kid named Andy who is new to Gotham City. He's had sort of not the greatest childhood. His dad, who loves him, is away in a rehabilitation program. So he's living with his Aunt Meredith, who is a reporter at the Gotham Gazette. And he's making some friends at school, but there are also some bullies who are giving him a hard time. And his favorite wrestler when he was growing up in Florida was Waylon Jones, who is otherwise known as Killer Croc. So when he moves to Gotham City, he finds out that Waylon has become, is no longer a wrestler, the pro wrestler of his childhood idol. He's now a supervillain in Gotham City. So they run into each other again in the sewers of Gotham, and Andy kind of gets mentored by the supervillain. So imagine if, like, Daniel LaRusso from Karate Kid doesn't meet Mr. Miyagi, but meets Killer Croc, and what kind of lessons is Croc going to teach him? That being said, the book, it shows Croc with Nicoletta's wonderful illustration. You know, the longer the book goes on, you kind of see Croc through Andy's eyes. So Croc, who's always traditionally been seen as this very vicious character, we've made him a lot more human in this, and he and Andy have a lot of connection and things that they have in common. But the book also shows, so it's for pro wrestling fans also, and people who are deep cut fans of Batman, but also people who have never read Batman. I feel like it's a great gateway book for kids who want to start reading comics, and maybe don't, like, they know the basics, but you don't have to follow along with any storyline. And it's about it's a book about where a kid can find out which grownups are on his side, which ones aren't, and what decisions you make, like what makes a villain and what doesn't. And so Croc and Andy have this really beautiful, but you can also see towards the end that it's not always going to be the best friendship. And it's a book that I hope has a lot of nuance, and there are jokes in it. It's fun. It's just really, I think, something that anyone at any age can enjoy, but especially 8 to 12-year-olds. And I'm so thrilled with Nicoletta. She lives in Italy, and she worked on this through the pandemic. And so we have a very special connection now through working on this book, because she got the pandemic first, and we were messaging each other, and she was like, be careful. So this book took a long time. She got married and had a baby throughout the process of working on this book. So we're bonded for life. We're so proud of this project, and we hope you check it out. And if there are any 8 to 12-year-olds or older or younger that you feel it would be a good fit for, please let them know about it. And thank you, DC, so much for this opportunity. It literally is a dream come true. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. We had someone in chat very excited to see your Batman soundtrack. Amazing. Thank you. Well, My Buddy Killer Croc is out now, so please feel free to pick that up, check it out. It's a beautiful story. I personally loved it. I felt that there was such motion in both the story and in the art. It was just always on the move. It was very compelling. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so now we are going to take a look. We're going to jump up a reading group and go to the DC graphic novels for young adults. And we're going to get started by talking about a series that we have in this space. This is the House of L Trilogy. And this is by New York Times bestselling author Claudia Gray, who's the author of the Constellation series and the Firebird series, among others, as well as a few Star Wars prose novels. So not unfamiliar to this sort of space drama area. And illustrator Eric Zawadski. This is a graphic novel trilogy that explores the story of the homeworld we know Superman is from. So everyone knows one of the basic things about Superman is that he grew up on Earth because the planet where he was born had a catastrophic event and was destroyed. This story is set in the past on that planet, in the society of that planet. And it's a Romeo and Juliet sort of story that stars Dawn, who is one of Krypton's wealthy elites and also a scientist, and Sarah, on the right here in this first book cover, who's one of the soldiers and very strong and dedicated and would die for the society of the planet. And because Krypton's society is so strict, these two should never cross paths. But there are rebellions happening in their society, as well as groundquakes happening on the planet. And all of that disruption actually does lead them to cross paths and puts them at a place where they are trying to figure out what is happening to Krypton. The final book in this series is on sale in February. And in that book, which will be House of L, The Treacherous Hope, it's the rightmost cover here. And Cam, we can look at some of the interiors too, because they're gorgeous. In Treacherous Hope, Sarah and Dawn will actually be trying to figure out how they can survive or get off planet for Krypton before the planet is fully destroyed. And there is a fun Easter egg for Superman fans. You will see baby Kal-El leaving the planet in the background of the third book. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Are going to talk a little bit about a book that came out earlier this year that we were so pleased to have with us and promoting at ALA in Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about Galaxy. Galaxy is by Jadzia Axelrod. She is the award-winning author, illustrator, activist, gadabout, style maven, and circus performer. She is contributing author to Wonderful Women of the World, as well as having written comics for Tor, Quirk Books, and Epic Books. She is the writer and producer of the popular fiction podcast, The Voice of Free Planet X, Aliens You Will Meet, and Fables of the Flying City. She lives in Philadelphia, where she cooks overly elaborate meals for her wonderful wife and delightful child. So here to talk about Galaxy, please welcome Jadzia Axelrod.
Hello, it's very nice to be here. I'm happy to talk about this book, which is one of my favorite things to do. Like Sarah, I've been a DC nerd from birth, so the opportunity to write a book for DC was something that was very exciting. And the opportunity to create a new character was doubly so. And so we have Galaxy, who's brand new, who is not connected to previous characters or lines. She has her own story, and it's a really good one, if you ask me. She's a sparkly space princess in exile who's hiding out on Earth. And as an element of protection, she has been assigned the body of a human boy. And she's lived that way for many years. And when a new girl comes to town, that disguise becomes harder and harder for her to keep up until eventually she can't and has to be the sparkly space princess that she was always meant to be. It is not a secret that this is a trans allegory, obviously. The point of this book was to make a story that showed that being trans is beautiful and that queer love is transformative. And the beauty of making such a story in a superhero universe is you get to use all this sci-fi rigmarole of alien bodies and magical transformation devices and have that keep the, excuse me, I got a little ahead of myself, as happens. But all that sci-fi rigmarole is there so that you don't get bogged down in the specific details. I could have told this story as a realistic trans narrative, and I didn't want to do that because I wanted people who were not necessarily trans feminine teenagers to see themselves in this book and to see themselves in Galaxy's journey. And I'm very pleased to say that that has happened. I've gotten many messages, not just from trans women and trans girls, but also from trans masc people, non-binary people, and cis people too, that they have seen themselves in this particular journey, which has been wonderful. And some people, this is the first time they've seen themselves anywhere in fiction. Trans protagonists are still rare, and trans queer protagonists on top of that are very rare. And so to have this character who is trans and queer and unapologetically so and proudly so is a really great thing to be a part of. And I'm so proud of this book and how it does that. A friend of mine told me that one thing she really liked about this book, because I'm a Southern woman, I can't say what I really like about this book. I have to say what someone else did. I don't want to be putting on airs, but what she really liked about this book is that the language that we as trans people so often have to use to describe ourselves is very clinical and very academic, because we are using it most often to defend ourselves to doctors or psychiatrists or employers or senators or who knows who we have to argue about our own existence about. And this story does away with that and tells about the trans experience in very direct and emotional terms. The page that you see right there, not the double page spread, but the single one, is one that people have frequently referred to me as one of their favorites and the most powerful. One of the last lines in there is, Taylor has a stone in her chest, it's a jewel, and we don't have to go into why. Read the book, you'll find out. But she finds that when she transforms into her true self, the stone doesn't hurt. And that she didn't realize how much it hurt until it stopped. And that was certainly my experience with transitioning and not realizing how much various things in my life were hurting me because they were constant. And then once they stopped, the release that came with that was very difficult to describe. I think I did a pretty good job there, but and that moment I like for many reasons. One, Jess Taylor illustrated it beautifully, but also this is the moment that Jess, the illustrator, cried during writing the script. The first time that they read the script, they cried at this moment. And many other people have talked about me that they have cried too, because it is a powerful thing. And the whole book is filled with stuff like that, where I try to condense the myriad of emotions and experiences of the trans journey into these superhero-esque moments that I think work very well. It is also a love story, as we see in this gorgeous double page spread. Again, Jess Taylor is an absolute wizard. I do not know how they do that, but they did it and it's amazing. And it's really about these two girls who fall in love. And that's great. And that should not be as revolutionary as it is, and it shouldn't be as, this should not be, people have talked to me how rare this is, and it shouldn't be. There's many stories of two girls falling in love, but so many times those are done in tragic terms. And I think that is necessary, and those stories are valuable. And like, of course we want to see love fall apart, because I mean, that's in cis romances too, and straight romances. But it was really nice to write this where it was just showing the positive aspects of a queer relationship and how that makes both Taylor and Kat, her girlfriend, grow and blossom. And I just, I'm really proud of this book, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. I'm really proud to be a part of the fact that Jess and I are a trans team that did this book together. We're also queer. The letterer is queer. Like, it's a very family with a capital F book. And I just really enjoy that. And I'm really thankful that the people at DC saw that this was a story that needed to be told and decided to have it be told in the best way possible, which thrills me to no end.
Thank you so much. I got a chat that there are some not entirely dry eyes, so that was really beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just checking to make sure we don't have questions. That was beautiful. Thank you, Jadzia. And remember, Galaxy is out now, so do pick it up and check it out. It's a gorgeous book, gorgeous, colorful, joyful book. Speaking of another gorgeous, colorful book, we're going to get ready to talk about the next book in our catalog today, which is Zatanna. So this is by Alys Arden. Elise Arden was raised by street performers, tea leaf readers, and glittering drag queens of the New Orleans French Quarter. She cut her teeth on the streets of New York and has worked all around the world since. The Casket Girls, her debut novel, garnered over 1 million reads online before it was acquired by Skyscape. The fifth book in the series, The Immortal Saint-Germain, is due out in 2023. Zatanna, The Jewel of Gravesend, is her first graphic novel. Please welcome Elise Arden. Elise, and I will let everyone know, Elise and Cami are on a book tour right now, and they are very generously joining us literally from the car on their way to the airport. So thank you, Elise, for joining us. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me?
You are loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yes. And just to be clear, we're not actually driving. We're in the car, but we are pulled over on the side of the road. So glad that it worked out. This was the quietest place that we could find, outside of a library. So always great following Jadzia or someone really serious when the whole audience is wiping their eyes. So Zatanna is not quite as serious, but it is a lot of fun, and the art is very beautiful. And Jacqueline DeLeon did an amazing job bringing her whole kooky world to life. So one of the things that attracted me about Zatanna and Zatanna's canon, even though these books are absolutely out of continuity, is the father-daughter aspect to Zatanna and Zatara. I love reading father-daughter stories. I love writing father-daughter stories. So I knew that I really wanted the core of this graphic novel to be a father-daughter story. And if you are a Zatanna fan, you will notice right away that her last name is Star in this book and at the beginning of this book. And that is part of the arc, and adoption becomes a big part of the plot. I won't give the whole thing away because it is quite a mystery. So This father-daughter story takes place at Coney Island, which I think is one of my favorite aspects of the book and most readers' favorite. I know it's everyone at DC's favorite aspects. And I live most of my adult life in New York, but I'm from very witchy places in New Orleans. So I kind of wanted to take that magical feeling that you get when you go to Coney Island and put it on the page. And that's kind of where the story started. Since Zatanna in the DCU is not tied to a specific city, I got to play around with that and was really excited to bring this golden elephant, well, just this elephant hotel from the 1900s, which really existed, which is hard to believe, back to life in current day in its very golden form, in a revitalized Coney Island. So one of the things that we wanted to do was just really update Zatanna and kind of do like a Gen Z version of Zatanna that would speak to today's teens. And it's one of the amazing things about Zatanna as a character that she's been through like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s in American culture. So, you know, what would she look like before she got the costume, before she knew how to use her magic, control her magic? And her journey in this graphic novel explores all of those things. So a couple of themes that you're going to find are overcoming shyness. So she has parents that are illusionists, they're in the spotlight. She's grown up around theater people. One of my first careers, many careers ago, was working on Broadway and working with the Blue Man Group. So I got to pull a lot of that experience, which I never thought I would use again, ever, onto the page, which was very fun. Kind of, you know, had some memories that I had completely forgotten about. So Zatanna, of course, like lots of teenagers, absolutely wants nothing to do with this, hates attention, hates being in the spotlight, doesn't want to be an illusionist. Of course, her father wants her to follow in her footsteps. And besides just, you know, being a rebellious teen, she really has crippling stage fright. It gives her a lot of anxiety. She doesn't like public speaking. She doesn't really like, you know, the spot, like being put on the spot in front of people she doesn't know. So one of my favorite artistic choices about the book, when you start the book, the first scene and a half is almost in a grayscale because we're in Manhattan and she's at her fancy prep school that she hates and she's not very well liked and she's shy. And it's, you know, 3 minutes before summer break lets out. And she gets on the subway when all the other kids are not going on the subway, and she has to go to the last stop on the train, which of course, if you're familiar with New York, on this train is Coney Island. And we just kind of see her starting to shed her Manhattan masks, you know, and it's just starting to play around with the idea that even as teens, we all wear different hats, different masks, you know, with the different things that we have to do day to day. And by the time she gets out of the train station at Coney Island, it almost looks like a different character. You know, she shed her uniform, she's let her hair down, she put makeup on, and you can just tell that when she's in her element, her neighborhood, where everyone's like a bit more like loud and colorful, that she just, her personality changes, she kind of lights up. And I think as a reader, you're like, oh, I thought I had her figured out, but maybe this book isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be. And she kind of gives you a tour through the boardwalk and she hustles a hustler. And it's like, oh, maybe she's really not what I thought she was going to be. And it's just showing that like, she's not even the person that the kids at school think she is, you know, who they make fun of. So to keep some stuff still a secret, Zatanna and her friends and her longtime love all go to hang out the first night of summer throughout Coney Island, and they end up in this mermaid circus tent, this Italian mermaid circus tent, and there is mirror script writing in lights all throughout the tent, which is kind of based on Leonardo da Vinci's mirror script. So I've had history teachers actually reach out to me, which I definitely never expected writing the book, telling me how much they love the Da Vinci part of the book, and they were explaining mirror script and like its historical place, and that it's a real thing. So I thought that was really cool. And one little fun fact about this is in most of canon, the Zatanna's mirror script is actually lettered, where each letter is backwards. And we got permission to do actual mirror script, where when you hold the page in front of a mirror, you should be able to read the text in the mirror. And I thought that that would be something really fun for teens to be able to do. So I was really excited when DC allowed that to happen. So when Zatanna starts reading the mirror script, first of all, to her surprise, she can read it with ease, and then it doesn't appear backwards to her. Crazy stuff starts to happen. And throughout the book, she has to kind of discover what this magic is, why she has it, what her parents have been hiding from her this whole time. And of course, by the end of the book, she has to kind of overcome some of that stage fright, because of course we need a big climactic moment on stage because it is Zatanna and it ends in a giant magical showdown that you might need a box of tissues for. And yeah, I think that's mostly it. Found family is a big theme. And I think the biggest takeaway that most readers walk away with is, you know, it's okay to be weird and it's okay to be different. And we should celebrate those things about ourselves and our friends.
Really well said, and such a fun summer read that makes you feel like you are on summer vacation no matter when you pick it up. It's just that little gorgeous slice of colorful Coney Island, like you said, Elise. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, folks, so we are going to talk, we go from Zatanna to Constantine, which, as we know in the comics, is a partnership, but not in our YA world. So teeing up to talk about both Constantine and our Teen Titans series, we have with us Cami Garcia. Cami Garcia is the #1 New York Times, USA Today, and international best-selling co-author of the Beautiful Creatures and Dangerous Creatures novel. Beautiful Creatures has been published in 50 countries and translated into 39 languages. Cami's solo series, The Legion, includes Unbreakable, which was an instant New York Times bestseller, and its sequel, Unmarked, both of which were nominated for Bram Stoker Awards. Her other works include X-Files Origins, Agent of Chaos, and the YA contemporary novels The Lovely Reckless and Broken Beautiful Heart. Cami was a teacher for 17-year-olds before co-authoring her first novel on a dare from 7 of her students. She's a co-founder of Y'all Fest, the biggest teen book festival in the country, and she lives in Maryland with her family. Please welcome Cami Garcia.
Hi, everyone. Am I on? Can everyone
You're
see
on.
me? I hope so.
Yep,
Okay,
we can
great.
hear you and see you.
So I am also in the car, but I am really excited to talk to the teachers and librarians. I was a teacher and reading specialist for 17 years and became an author by accident. So teaching and working with kids is my true love. And this line was such a fun opportunity to be able to like really use all of my reading specialist knowledge, because as Sarah mentioned, a lot of people, I'm sure you encounter this as librarians, think that graphic novels are not real books. And as a reading specialist, I learned that it's actually more difficult to read a graphic novel than it is to read a novel. And it requires a lot more work and different parts of your brain because you have to make connections. It helps children develop vocabulary and critical thinking skills in such a fun way. So I always read graphic novels, and I read them, both as a reader and with my students in my classrooms. So when DC approached me and said, would you like to, write for this new graphic novel line that we're doing, I was really excited about it. I had a Beautiful Creatures manga done of the first book, but I never had a graphic novel of any of my books. So I was really excited, and also I would get to write them myself. Like, it wasn't going to be someone else adapting my work. So I was really excited about it. And I'm going to kind of do these in reverse because I started with the Teen Titans novels and Constantine is my latest. But the one thing that I loved was overall, all the books in the line, they're out of continuity, and you don't have to have read a whole bunch of comics in order to, you know, enter the world of Constantine or Zatanna or the Teen Titans. And I thought that was really important because a lot of times kids don't want to try graphic novels, especially teenagers, because they're worried that they're like comic books and they'll have to, you know, they'll have missed the first 20 issues and they won't know what's going on with the character and they won't know how to follow the story. And so when DC asked me to write for the line, I was one of the, you know, in like the first 5 or 6 people. They said the point of this line is we want to introduce teens to our characters in a meaningful way, but we don't want them to have to worry about, you know, all of these years of canon that come with reading comics. So to me, a natural way to do that is in origin stories, to allow a reader to come in, pick up the book, and know the character on the page. And so Constantine, some of you might know, is originally a character, a Vertigo character, and he's a little bit wild as an adult. He does lots of smoking and drinking and misbehaving. So he was not an easy character to translate into a teenager because obviously I did not want him doing any of those things. So one of the first things I decided was that instead of making bad kind of substance decisions, Constantine was going to be making bad magical decisions in this book. And the other thing that I really thought about was, what is it like to be 17? He's 17, he's in the UK, he has just graduated from high school, it's about to be summer, and I have a 17-year-old. And one of the things I've learned, you know, from both teaching 17-year-olds and hanging out with my son and his friends is that 17-year-olds, you know, feel like they know everything. They're on the cusp of, you know, adulthood, going to college. They really feel grown up. But in a lot of ways, they aren't grown up. And I think it's interesting because they start making a lot of really important decisions and hopefully doing that well, but they still have moments of getting themselves into not even trouble, but just into predicaments that they haven't experienced before. Dating or with friendships, you know, the first time you have a really big falling out with a friend and you have to figure out how to make good on it. So in Constantine, he has to go, he has to decide what he's going to do. And his parents want him to study in the United States with a prestigious magician named Lady Marguerite. But he doesn't want to do this because, like many 17-year-olds, he thinks he knows everything. And he knows about magic. He doesn't need to study. But when his best friend Veronica calls from Georgetown, I grew up outside of DC. She calls from where she lives in DC and says, the front man for our band just failed, and we have all these shows lined up. Do you want to come to the US for the summer and be the, you know, lead singer for our band? Constantine already plays the guitar. You can see that in one of the shots. And he loves music. So he's like, I'm coming. He pretends he wants to go to study with Lady Marguerite, or at least meet her as a way to get to the US. And he does meet her, kind of irreverently, and starts playing with the band. It's a punk band. So the book is full of like wild, you know, music scenes and like Veronica's apartment. There's like graffiti all over the place. And it's just very fun. It's very colorful. I think the middle shot really shows that. The colors, Ruth Redmond did a beautiful job. And Isaac Goodhart, the artist, really captured what it feels like to be kind of wild and free at that age. You know, obviously we need a more important thing than just playing music. He meets the magician. He gets his hand on a magical kind of occult book, and he and his friends start messing around with it and doing magic that is way above his pay grade, with disastrous results. They end up summoning an entity that they were not trying to summon, and the fallout of that actually affects Veronica, his best friend, not him. And that was really important to me because I do feel like a lot of times when you're that age, when you make mistakes that affect other people, it's just crushing. And So the biggest thing that happens in this is he can't actually solve this problem himself. He tries, like, I mean, legitimately tries, but the magic is too big and he has to figure out how to help his friend. So he has to ask for help. He has to ask his stepfather for help, who he has kind of a precarious relationship with. His stepfather wants to be a stepfather, wants to have a relationship with him, and Constantine is not interested. But he finds that when he really needs help, his stepfather Roderick is the person who steps up to be there for him. And I tell teenagers this book is about handsome guys and girls playing in fun rock bands and like having fun times and running around and spray painting their car. What it really is about is make things right after you make a big mistake. And that's what I feel like, for librarians and teachers is the real takeaway that kids will get from this book. I hope people try it. It's at the moment a standalone, so you get the complete story. We got to create a lot of new characters. Veronica and Luna are the two girls on the front with him, and they are main characters with him. So it's a very, girl kind of heroine heavy cast. Hope everyone loves it. I had a lot of fun writing it. I'm also going to talk about Teen Titans, I think. So we will switch gears, and I am best known for Teen Titans with Gabriel Piccolo. These books I adore. These are the first books I wrote for Raven. Was the first book I wrote for DC, and I wrote these books specifically with libraries in mind. I taught in both public and private school, and when I taught outside of DC in really underserved areas, one of the things that I noticed with kids, and then later with Beautiful Creatures, when my books came out, was that obviously you don't have a lot of budget. You can't always even purchase more than one of the same title. And a lot of times kids would write me and say they really wanted to read Beautiful Creatures, but the first book was always checked out of a library. So they couldn't read the subsequent books. So I wanted to have more than one entry point into the Titan series so that if one book was checked out of a library, they could get the other. So the way I designed the series was that Beast Boy and Raven, the first two books, are both origin stories. The characters do not meet in those books. They are, self-standing, self-standing stories where you can read either one first because they take place simultaneously in two different cities. Beast Boy Loves Raven is the third book. So what I tell teens is you can start with either book, but you need to read both Raven and Beast Boy before you read Beast Boy Loves Raven, because both of those books end right when they're about to kind of go on this journey, which is where Beast Boy Loves Raven picks up. And you see them like en route to Nashville, which is where that book takes place. And then you see them meet. Raven is really, all of my books I have found, all my books really are about found family. And overall, they're about figuring out how to be the person that you want to be, and still make a place for yourself in the world without having to change who you are at heart. And so with Raven, she is she's a foster kid. She was about to be adopted by her foster mother, and they had a terrible accident that ended tragically. And so her foster mother died, and now she has moved to New Orleans to live with, what would have become her aunt, her foster mom's sister, and her daughter, Max, who is also 17. And Max is an original character that Gabriel and I got to create. She is she's a smart Black girl from New Orleans, and New Orleans native, and she actually also has powers, but we don't learn that until the very end of the book. Raven does not know this. So Raven is suffering from a little bit of amnesia. It's a very specific kind that's real in real life, and it affects her most recent personal memories, but she can still remember how to do things like ride a bike or write, but she can't remember what is her favorite candy bar. So she starts at a new school, and she is hearing voices, and she's also picking up like other people's emotions. If someone's angry near her, suddenly she feels angry and she cannot figure this out. On the left, we see this kind of red demon creature. And in the canon, Raven is half demon. Her father's a demon. So as the story goes on, she uncovers that this voice she's hearing is her father, trying to kind of negatively influence her. And by the end of the story, she's kind of getting her powers. You see what that's like. You see how that affects her in school. But she also, by the end of this story, does remember and realizes that her father is this horrible demon, who was terrible to her mother. And so the question becomes like, if your parent is evil, are you evil? If, does she have to be a bad person because her dad is terrible? When of course the answer is no, but she has to figure that out on her own. One of the things that I'm most proud about with this series is the amount of diversity. It was very important. Gabriel is Brazilian and also now has come out as Ace. It was very important for us to show diversity in the cast. Beast Boy in our series is Latinx, which is not the case in the DC canon. And we were really excited that DC let us make that change. Beast Boy's best friends in the book, Tank and Stella, are Japanese American, and Stella is Afro-Latina. We see like these stories are populated by, there are queer characters, but like Raven's two best friends that are girls, they go to prom together. It's very normalized because I wanted to just show all these different kinds of kids from different backgrounds, and rather than like in the context of like a drama about their identity, just as it being part of like the friend group and the school. My daughter and I are both invisibly disabled. So there are a lot of visibly disabled teens in this series. There are kids in wheelchairs, kids with visible prosthetics. Because obviously to me, I wanted, the disabilities to be obvious to even abled readers. So basically like throughout the series, that was our goal, was like to show as many different kinds of kids as possible so that all kids could find somebody to kind of identify with, or also just see someone like them in the school hallways, so that, everybody in the school hall isn't like cis white. I'm super proud of the diversity. For Beast Boy, his situation is basically that he is dealing with a lot of kind of body image issues, which I like because normally we see girls as only the ones struggling with body issue. And that is not the case in real life. So he's kind of grappling with that and also getting his powers. And, they don't work properly. He doesn't even know why he has them. So all of these stories are about like what it's like, honestly, like getting your powers is not that different in a lot of ways than like puberty. Like it's very similar. Your body's changing. It's doing things that you don't expect or understand. And you have to figure out how it works all over again. So the third book, Beast Boy Loves Raven, is kind of Raven, Beast Boy, and Max. And then towards the middle of the book, Damian Wayne, who you see here on the right, he comes into the book. And book 4, which comes out in March, is the Robin book. And that book, Damian Wayne and Dick Grayson, who are both Robins in the Batman universe. But this book is also within the context of the Teen Titans universe. So it is still, you see here on the right, in the bottom right, you see Raven and Max with Natalia, Raven's aunt and Max's mom. In the middle, you see them all, Beast Boys there. So this kind of is like we are adding to the group. We have Beast Boy, Max, and Raven, and now Damian, and now Dick is joining them. And this is a story about brothers. Damian is Bruce Wayne's son, but Bruce did not know even existed until Damian's mom shows up on his doorstep with him. And Dick Grayson was a kind of orphan who Bruce adopted. And he is his present quote unquote Robin. But in this series, like you will not see costumes or superhero capes. All of the teens kind of dress in normal outfits you see here. Dick is wearing kind of a Robin Letterman jacket instead of like the Robin costume. So in this story, Dick is a little bit older. He's in college, and you learn the backstory over the course of the book. And in the backstory, you learn that when Damien came to meet his dad, Bruce, for the first time, and found out that Bruce had adopted another kid almost his same age, he was devastated. And then even more devastated to learn that this kid was kind of, learning how to guard the streets along with his dad. And Damien did not feel like he was part of that. And so he took off. And you see here, Dick's got some GPS going. Dick is trying to find his brother because all he wants to do is have a brother and have a relationship with him. And that story will continue into book 5, which I am writing right now. So there's a lot of themes in these books, but the biggest one is found family, embracing who you are, and not letting yourself be defined by other people. So I think there's a lot for teens in these books, and I think they have really positive messages overall. So we're proud of them.
So beautifully said. Thank you so much, Cami. And folks, if you have not heard of this series, you need to pick it up. It is far and away a huge runaway hit for us, and has placed on the New York Times bestseller list and always gets glowing reviews. And you can find it everywhere, from the independent record store I hit up when I went back to Baltimore to visit my family to Target and Walmart. So definitely check it out. Thank you so much, Cami, for being with us today from your book tour. Pam, if you want to go forward, I know we're really at time here. If you had a question that didn't get answered, you can absolutely feel free to reach out to us. Additionally, if you would like to sign up for the librarian newsletter, you can email any one of us on our contact list here. T. Leahy there on the upper right technically is the custodian of that newsletter. So she is probably your top pick. And I think we managed to address all the questions that came through. And thank you as well, James, for noting the way that the YA graphic novels were categorized. We will definitely look into that. Thank you again, everyone, so much for being with us today. We are so excited, so pleased to have these books in our catalog and to have been able to share with you some of the sneak peeks of what's coming up. And just a reminder that if you do reach out about the librarian newsletter, you will regularly get PDFs, both of these books that we were talking about and of other new releases as they are ready to go. Thank you again so much to all of our talent that joined us today. Sara, Jadzia, Elise, Cami, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so pleased and grateful to have worked with you on these wonderful stories. And thank you to all of our librarians who joined us for the In the Know presentation. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.